From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Suini Gray. We start in Venezuela, where President Nicolas Maduro has officially launched the Petro, the cryptocurrency aimed at countering sanctions and bringing economic stability to the country. Maduro previously announced that the value of 100 million tokens would amount to $6 billion. Early on Tuesday, Venezuela's Vice President, Tarek El-Assimi, announced the start of the digital currency pre-sale process with 82 million units available. The Petro will be backed by the country's oil resources.
The
Venezuelan Petro is ready. Tomorrow it will be a very busy day since the Petro was born on February 20. We will be working on forming strategic alliances. The biggest companies and blockchains in the world are with Venezuela. We are going to sign agreements.
Today, the pre-sale of the Venezuelan Petro officially begins. The country is now at the forefront. We congratulate our people on this historic day. We are the first nation that launches its cryptocurrency, backed by its natural resources.
Our correspondent in Caracas, Freddie Gillingham, found out a bit more about why this bold new move is so important.
The University of Medical Science in Caracas hosted a very special briefing for its young practitioners. The launching of Venezuela's commodity-backed cryptocurrency is only hours away from launching, and these students are getting a last-minute lesson on how it works and why it will be of particular importance to them. The Petro seeks to open new doors in economic sovereignty and circumvent economic sanctions that threaten the livelihoods of all of these young students. With foreign-imposed sanctions preventing Venezuela from paying off vital debts, a huge strain has been put on the importing of medicines, leaving these students worried for the future and reliant on an alternative.
Breaking with the hegemony of the dollar, we can do transactions as person or as a government, to guarantee the primary materials so we can deliver medicine to our people.
Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro announced the economic move only 2 months ago. His government have been at the brunt of what they call an economic war waged by Washington and some of its allies. Debt refinancing has become almost impossible under current conditions, but the Petro seeks to overcome this financial blockade.
Our major partners and commercial allies are interested to participate due to the oil. OPEC is interested in creating a cryptocurrency for commercial oil exchange. This is a tendency. We don't have to be afraid of it. This is a revolutionary way of payment. We are eliminating the intermediaries, destroying the financial monopolies and oligopolies dominated by the United States.
Venezuela's economy needs a lifeline, and the Petro may be just that. Paving the way for financial and economic independence, this step could well set up a new trend for countries to follow in the future. Freddie Gillingham, teleSUR, Caracas.
Now, cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, have of course been in the news a lot recently. So we wanted to talk about what exactly they are and what the implications might be. We're being joined now, live, from Trinidad and Tobago by Shiva Besessa of Pinnacle Technology Solutions. I'm sorry, Shiva. Thank you, Shiva, for joining us.
Hi, good day. Thanks for having me.
So really briefly, what is a cryptocurrency and how does it differ from physical money?
Okay, so with the introduction of Bitcoin, you have a host of other cryptocurrencies that have developed. They're privately developed cryptocurrencies as well as publicly available cryptocurrencies, and then we also have the advent of digital fiat, or countries seeking to provide digital fiat, which is their own digital dollar on a cryptocurrency, basically. So this is interesting news out of Venezuela. Certainly something that we should be, looking at carefully, I would recommend that they approach this in a very careful, thought-out manner, because what we see a lot of as well is a lot of enthusiasm into getting into this space without properly thinking it out. So I certainly hope that the researchers have put in the time and the effort into truly understanding this technology and developing it.
But, and as you mentioned, the Petro is actually is the first cryptocurrency that is backed by a physical thing, in this case, oil. Is that going to help? I mean, you're just speaking about you're hoping that they looked into it properly and did the proper research. And we did see an economist in the earlier package talking about OPEC is thinking about creating its own cryptocurrency. Would it help that it's being backed by a physical commodity, in this case, oil?
Right. So one of the things about digital currency, cryptocurrency, is that it's backed by mathematical proofs, and it didn't really need the necessity of being backed by something like a tangible good. So with the advent of this development, where it is actually being backed by a tangible good, that is something that. It's a recent development. I haven't heard of anybody else trying to do this, backing it with a tangible good. So it definitely is something that requires a little more understanding as to how exactly it's going to be implemented and executed. I'd like to learn a lot more about it, but it's a nice development.
And I know that there's a sort of digital cryptocurrency sort of startup in Barbados. Is this something that you think small island states like Trinidad and Tobago, because we are having some issues with foreign exchange accessibility, and countries from the global south, should be looking at as a valid possibility and maybe weighing the pros and cons of it?
Yeah, quite definitely there are opportunities and there are risks. And the way I have approached this area is that I've looked at both sides, both the opportunities and the risks. There are opportunities in the payment space. There are opportunities with respect to assisting foreign currency crunch. So there are definite opportunities, but there are definite risks as well. This is why any sort of national development or national push towards a national fiat cryptocurrency, we need to get all the stakeholders at the table, the central bank, the technology players, and to make sure we come up with the proper suite of characteristics that this currency will have to properly be utilized for the aim that is being positioned. But the cryptocurrency space is definitely one that needs to be watched, and there are opportunities, but as well there are risks.
Thank you so much, Shiva Bisesa. So we've been talking to Shiva Bisesa of Pinnacle Technology Solutions about cryptocurrencies and the opportunities and the risk. In other news now, Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza is in Equatorial Guinea on the third leg of his dignity tour, which is taking him through Africa. He was met by the President, Prime Minister, and several members of the cabinet. Arreaza says President Teodoro Nguema lent his support in defense of Venezuelan sovereignty and President Nicolas Maduro's fight for democracy. Arreaza was in Nigeria yesterday and once again called on international observers to come to witness the election in April. In Peru, the National Criminal Court has ordered former President Alberto Fujimori to stand trial for the killings of 6 farmers in 1992 during his 10-year rule. The court said Fujimori lacks immunity since the pardon granted by President Pedro Pablo Kaczynski in December of last year was related to a different crime. The former leader was serving a 25-year sentence for crimes against humanity that included commanding death squads that targeted suspected civilians fighting his regime. And on the shores of San Juan, local Afro communities are fighting for their right to live and move around their areas freely without fear of violence. Our correspondent, Lorena Hoyos, brings us the 4th part of this series made in Choco, Colombia.
Uncertainty remains in San Juan. The lack of food forces the Afro-Indigenous community to overcome fear. Its inhabitants don't dare to go to the Copamo River to fish, a place that brings painful memories because not so long ago it was bombarded by military forces. The communities don't forget this, and the tough reality is that they also know there's no other option to survive.
That is life, and that is all we have. We need fishing to live. We don't have much money, it doesn't come very often over here, so we have to fish for our children.
After a long day, the people do catch some fish, and joy returns to their faces. They know they will have lunch for today. While fishing, Efrain tells us that some families eat just once a day.
We really suffer here. One is supposed to eat 3 times a day, but poor people here cannot. Some of us make it through the day with just one meal, and they sleep with hunger.
The river communities used to fish in the San Juan River, but mining contaminated the river with mercury and the fish vanished. The town had to move to Toro River and use fish over there until just a few days ago when military groups also bombed that area.
You never see medical brigades helping the communities for 8 days, 15 days. Only once in a while, the Red Cross comes and shares some pills. But that is rare. Happens once a year. The state only comes here to shoot or throw bombs. So instead of trusting it, we are afraid.
After the bombing, the community decided to resist in the territory. But a year ago, the story was different. At that time, the clashes and crossfire forced 16 Wunan families to flee over Buenaventura. Toro's government shows us the abandoned houses.
We are trapped here and resisting only because of our crops, our homes, our land, and our community. Because if we abandon it all here, we would have nothing to return to.
Expelled families want to return, but the bombings have raised the level of fear.
We still resist for our animals and our plantations. If we run away, the government won't help us at all.
People on the shores of San Juan fight to stay in their territory. Meanwhile, in Buenaventura, Wunan indigenous who were taken away from home hope to return to the place that they were forced out of through war. And they wish for someday soon the violence to be over.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Grenada is gearing up for elections on March 13th, and this Tuesday is nomination day when the candidates are being officially registered. Prime Minister Keith Mitchell has been in power since 2013 and is standing again. So, let's go live to St. George's in Grenada and talk to journalist Kern Mason about how the elections are shaping up. Hello, Kern. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So, Kern, how are the chances for Keith Mitchell and the new national parties looking in these elections?
Well, based on reports from the Prime Minister at this point, he's confident that his party will be able to pull off another landslide victory in the elections. Many persons would say that it is possible, and others think that there may be some upsets in the upcoming general elections.
Why are we thinking for, why are people suspecting that there may be an upset? What is the community in Grenada saying about the elections and the Prime Minister's chances?
Well, the communities, they are very split. Some, they are very adamant that their party, which is the NMP, will be successful in the elections. Others believe that based on the work that the NMP has been doing, that they should not be elected for another term in office. So one will have to wait and see come March 13th who would be successful in the elections.
Okay, and Grenada has a bit of a vulnerable economy. What are the parties, the persons who are contesting, saying in terms of what they will do, their plans to strengthen the country's economy?
In terms of putting out plans, I have not heard anything definitive from the different parties in terms of how they would fix the economy, how they would create jobs and other stuff to help lift the economy right now. So I guess going into the final days leading up to elections, the parties will be able to come forth to the electorate and explain to them what it is they're going to do in terms of lifting the economy.
Okay, thank you so much. So we've been speaking to Kern Mason. Kern Mason is talking to us from St. George's in Grenada. Thank you so much, Kern. Have a good day.
You're welcome.
The Brazilian government has suspended the debate on its controversial pension reform. This is one of the most criticized moves by President Michel Temer. Social organizations see this as a reduction in rights for pensioners. The project is aimed at setting for the first time a minimum retirement age of 65 for men and 62 for women. It raises the number of required working years to receive a full pension. The government said it was necessary to fill the $83 billion deficit in the pension system. In Bolivia, social and trade union organizations have endorsed current President Evo Morales as the main candidate to run for the presidential elections in 2019. The secretary of the Bolivian Campesino Trade Union, Jacinto Herrera, announced in Santa Cruz they will carry out massive mobilizations in 9 departments across the country to support Morales' presidency. In Bermuda, the lawyers presenting an appeal before the Supreme Court against the same law that prohibits the same-sex marriage have filed their case. Attorney Mark Pittengill presented the appeal in the name of a Bermudan citizen who plans to get married in the future. On February 7th, the governor of Bermuda, John Rankin, signed a bill into law that essentially reverses the legalization of same-sex marriage, in spite of a verdict issued last year by the Supreme Court approving it. The rainy season in Bolivia has placed 3 of its 9 departments under a red alert. According to Civil Defense, the damage report is still partial, but our correspondent Freddie Morales has more.
The official assessment of the damages caused by the heavy rains this season, due to La Niña currents, reveals that more than 20,000 families were affected.
We have 429 families displaced, 15,517 families affected, and 315 houses with damages.
The report confirms that at least 8 people died this year as a consequence of natural disasters.
The people that died due to the floodings, landslides, and climate change effects are 8 in total. 5 from Tiquipaya, 1 from Cotagaita, 1 in La Paz, and 1 in Sucre.
More than a month ago, a state of national emergency was declared to facilitate the delivery of resources. According to the Meteorology Service, the rainy season will extend until March, but the strongest part has already passed.
Time now for another short break. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Syrian pro-government forces have entered the Kurdish enclave of Afrin, which has been the target of Turkish airstrikes. The movement of troops comes a day after state television reported popular forces would enter Afrin to counter the Turkish offensive. Turkish troops and pro-Turkish rebels have been fighting the Kurds and taken over 10% of Afrin in the last month. Turkey has also warned the Syrian government against intervening, raising concerns of escalating conflict between the countries. That prompted the United Nations to immediately issue a call for peace.
All parties involved have a responsibility under international humanitarian and human rights law to take all necessary measures to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure, including health facilities, and to allow for safe, sustained and unimpeded humanitarian access to all in need.
And the UN has also warned the situation in the eastern region of Ghouta is spiraling out of control. The standoff between armed rebel groups and government forces has reportedly killed dozens in the rebel-held district. The international community is asking for an immediate ceasefire so that humanitarian aid can be delivered. Time now for a look at some of the other stories making headlines around the world.
According to the United Nations, about 224 million people are suffering from malnutrition across Africa. Speaking at the FAO Regional Conference for Africa, UN official Bukat Tijani said that climate change and conflicts in countries like Somalia and the Central African Republic have led to food insecurity and escalating malnutrition. He also said the continent's rising population is also a cause of concern, as by 2030 it's expected to increase to 1.7 billion. Dozens of high school students from in and around Washington, D.C. staged a lie-in demonstration in front of the White House to protest against gun attacks. The teens laid on the ground for 3 minutes, the time it took the gunmen in a Florida school to fatally shoot 17 people. They demanded that President Donald Trump and Congress change gun laws to keep children safe.
No, I don't feel safe at work. I feel like we need more mental health people in the buildings. I feel like we need more security. I feel like we need more drills. These students were doing a typical fire drill, lost their lives. The teachers.
At least 17 people have been killed in Mozambique's capital Maputo after a garbage dump collapsed, burying people and the nearby houses. Heavy rain is believed to have moved the rubbish mound, trapping the people who were sleeping at the time of the incident. Mozambique's emergency service has warned there could be more victims under the vast waste pile.
The government should close this landfill and mobilize people to move out from here because this is a big area. The houses are in water now.
The Mount Sinabung volcano in Indonesia has erupted, shooting plumes of smoke and ash as high as 7 kilometers. Several villages around it have been covered in thick layers of ash. The visibility in the area was reduced to about 5 meters, and the airlines flying in the region have been issued a code red notice. No casualties have been reported so far.
Archaeologists exploring the world's biggest underwater cave in Mexico have discovered ancient human remains of at least 9,000 years old. They also found the bones of animals from the last ice age. The cave is 347 kilometers long and was explored by the underwater archaeologists of the Gran Aquifero Maya project. The explorers believe more research in the cave would help them understand the development of the rich Mayan culture in the region before the Spanish conquest. And that brings us to the end of this news brief. For these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Soini Gray. Thank you so much for watching.